What if the version of you living today isn't the real you at all, but the version that's been shaped, pressured, and controlled by everyone else's expectations? What if the real you, the brave you, the honest you, the powerful you, has been buried under years of people-pleasing, silent suffering, and pretending to be fine? What if the exhaustion you feel isn't from life, but from wearing masks that were never meant for you? What if every yes you gave to others was actually a no to yourself? And now your soul is finally asking, when is it my turn? What if the reason you feel lost isn't because you're broken, but because you've never allowed yourself to exist without fear of judgment? And what if in the next 60 seconds you realize that you don't need anyone's approval to be whole, you don't need permission to be yourself, and you don't need to keep sacrificing your peace just to earn love that was never real? Stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear might be the moment you finally stop living for others and start living for you. What if the biggest reason you feel exhausted, disconnected, and quietly unhappy isn't because life is hard, but because you've spent years abandoning yourself in the name of being a good person? What if every time you said yes when your heart whispered no, a small piece of you disappeared, so silently that you didn't even notice it happening? People-pleasing doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels kind. It feels helpful. It feels like the right thing to do. You think you're just avoiding conflict, keeping peace, being supportive. But underneath, something much darker is happening, something shocking. You're slowly teaching your mind that your needs don't matter. You're training your heart to believe that your feelings are negotiable, but everyone else's are absolute, and you don't realize it. But every time you silence yourself, you're carving out space for guilt to grow, for resentment to build, and for your identity to fade. What if I told you people-pleasing is not kindness? It's self-erasure. It's making yourself smaller so others can feel bigger. It's swallowing your pain so no one else feels uncomfortable. It's pretending you're okay so no one has to worry about you. And the most shocking part? People rarely appreciate the sacrifices you make. They simply get used to them. Your silence becomes expected. Your availability becomes assumed. Your yes becomes automatic in their minds. And the more you disappear for others, the more invisible you become to yourself. You wake up one day realizing you're living a life built on the expectations of people who don't even know the real you, because you never gave yourself permission to exist. What if the version of you that feels confused, lost, and emotionally drained is not the real you at all, but the leftover you? The shadow of someone who has spent too long prioritizing everyone else's comfort over their own truth? You are not born to be a mirror reflecting other people's needs. You were born with your own light, your own voice, your own desires. And every time you ignore them, that light dims. What if everything you've been searching for, confidence, clarity, purpose, peace, is waiting on the other side of a single moment where you finally decide, I won't abandon myself anymore? What if the approval you've been chasing your whole life is the very thing stealing your happiness, your identity, and your peace without you ever realizing it? What if the validation you crave from others isn't a reward, but a trap? Think about it. You wake up and the first thing you worry about is what people will think, what they'll say, whether they'll accept you, whether they'll judge you. Every decision you make is filtered through their potential reactions. And slowly, without noticing, you hand over the steering wheel of your life to people who don't even know your truth. Chasing validation feels harmless in the beginning. You want to be liked, you want to be appreciated, you want to feel seen. But something shocking happens behind the scenes. The more you depend on people to tell you who you are, the less you remember who you used to be. You start performing instead of living. You start adjusting instead of expressing. You start molding yourself into whatever shape earns the most approval. And soon, you forget your original shape completely. What if I told you that seeking validation is like drinking salt water? The more you drink, the thirstier you become. People's praise gives you a quick dopamine hit, but then it fades. And you're left needing more and more and more until their opinions become your oxygen and your true self slowly suffocates. The scariest part? Validation from others is never consistent. One day people admire you. The next day they criticize you. And the day after, they forget you even exist. But every reaction affects you because you've allowed your worth to be built on their approval? What if the reason you feel insecure isn't because you're not enough, but because you've allowed the world to become the judge of your value? You've given strangers, relatives, friends, and sometimes even people you don't like the power to decide how you feel about yourself. You bend until you break. You smile until it hurts. You pretend you're fine until the mask grows heavier than the truth. And one day you look in the mirror and realize you've become a collection of other people's expectations, not your own desires. What if the validation you've been begging for loses all its power the moment you finally say, I don't need anyone to approve who I am. I choose myself. What if the reason you always feel unworthy, insecure, or not enough has nothing to do with your abilities and everything to do with the impossible standards you've been trying to meet for people who don't even know your heart? What if the truth is this? Your worth never increases by meeting other people's expectations. It increases when you finally meet your own. Imagine spending your whole life running on a treadmill someone else controls, speeding up when they expect more, slowing down when they lose interest, stopping only when they decide you've done enough. That's exactly what happens when you start living for approval. You give people the remote control to your self-worth, and the shocking part is, most of them don't even realize they're holding it. You think you're doing the right thing by trying to impress them. You think if you work harder, look better, earn more, stay quieter, or push yourself beyond your limits, someone somewhere will finally say, now you're good enough. But that moment never comes, because their expectations were never designed to be met. They were designed to keep you chasing. What if the reason you're constantly tired is because you're carrying the weight of judgments that were never yours to hold? What if the reason you feel lost is because you've been looking for your value in places it never existed? People will always have expectations. Be kinder, be stronger, be faster, be quieter, be more confident, be less emotional, be everything except yourself. You bend until your soul cracks. You shape shift until you don't recognize your own reflection. You sacrifice your dreams just to fit inside someone else's imagination. And the most shocking part, even after all of that, they will still want more from you. But your worth was never meant to be measured by their checklist. It was meant to be honored by your own truth. What if you stopped trying to fit into roles that drain you? What if you stopped apologizing for who you are? What if you finally understood that the only expectations that matter are the ones that come from your own soul, the ones that lead you toward peace, not pressure, toward purpose, not perfection? What if everything you've ever wanted, confidence, love, respect, courage, begins the moment you stop asking others to decide your value and finally claim it for yourself? What if the reason your life feels chaotic, heavy, and emotionally draining isn't because you're surrounded by the wrong people, but because you never learned how to protect yourself from them? What if the truth is that boundaries, the very thing you keep avoiding, are not walls that push people away, but bridges that protect your peace, your time, and your identity? Most people think setting boundaries makes them rude, selfish, or difficult. So they keep saying yes while dying inside. They keep giving more than they have. They keep absorbing the anger, expectations, and negativity of others until their own mind becomes a battlefield. But here's the shocking reality. When you don't set boundaries, people don't just take your time. They take your energy, your confidence, but the weight of carrying versions of yourself that were never real. The cheerful version you put on to avoid questions. The strong version you wear so no one sees your pain. The calm version you fake because you're scared of being judged. The agreeable version you become because you fear rejection. You don't realize it, but every mask you wear suffocates a part of your truth. And the worst part, people start loving the mask, not the real you. So you end up surrounded by people who don't actually know you, don't truly understand you, and can't emotionally connect with you because you've never given them access to your real self. What if the reason you feel lonely even in a crowded room is because you're present, but your authentic self is missing? Choosing acceptance over authenticity is a silent betrayal. A betrayal of your voice, your needs, your desires, your identity. You think being accepted will make you happy, but it only makes you invisible to yourself. Authenticity, on the other hand, is terrifying. It means you might disappoint people. You might lose some, you might shock others, you might break the image they built of you. But here's the shocking truth no one tells you. The moment you choose authenticity over acceptance, you don't lose people, you lose the wrong people, and the right ones finally see you. What if everything you've been searching for, connection, peace, confidence, belonging, has been waiting behind one courageous decision, the decision to stop performing and finally be yourself? What if the version of you that feels broken, confused, and disconnected isn't the end of your story, but the unfinished beginning? What if you haven't actually lost yourself? You've just been buried under years of expectations, heartbreaks, and self-neglect. And all you need is the courage to rebuild? We often think rebuilding ourselves requires something dramatic. A new city, a new job, a new life, but the shocking truth is this. You don't rebuild yourself by changing your surroundings. You rebuild yourself the moment you stop abandoning who you are. Think about how long you've been running from your pain, running from your truth, running from your needs because you thought they were inconvenient, running from your emotions because people told you they were too much, running from your dreams because someone else convinced you they were unrealistic. What if every part of you that feels weak right now is actually the part trying to come back to life? You're not broken. You're unfinished. You're not lost. You're waiting to be reclaimed. You're not powerless. You're just drained from pouring into people who never pour back. You can rebuild yourself, but here's the shocking twist. Rebuilding doesn't start with perfection. Rebuilding starts with honesty. The moment you say, I am not okay, but I'm ready to try, your healing begins the moment you whisper, I deserve better than what I've been tolerating. Your strength returns the moment you admit, I've been pretending for too long. Your authenticity awakens. Rebuilding isn't loud, it isn't glamorous, it doesn't happen in a day, it happens in small choices, the ones you've been avoiding, choosing rest instead of guilt, choosing boundaries instead of resentment, choosing truth instead of pretending, choosing yourself instead of everyone else. What if the identity you've been searching for is underneath the layers you've been forced to wear? The expectations of family, society, friendships, relationships, culture, and fear. You don't find yourself by seeking approval. You find yourself by listening to the voice you've ignored for years, the voice that says you deserve peace, love, respect, and freedom. The most shocking truth of all, you can reclaim every lost part of yourself the moment you decide you're done living small, because the real you isn't gone. The real you is waiting for permission to rise again. In the end, everything you've been searching for, your peace, your identity, your courage, your confidence, begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. You spent years shrinking to fit, bending to please, running to satisfy expectations that were never meant to define you. But now you know the truth. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to be authentic. You are allowed to rebuild. The power you thought you lost was never gone. It was just waiting for you to return home to yourself. This is your moment to rise, to reclaim, to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Not by seeking approval, but by honoring your truth. Not by pleasing others, but by finally choosing you. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for allowing these words to touch your heart. I hope this message becomes the turning point in your journey. The moment you stop giving your power away and start living for yourself. I'm wishing you strength, clarity, and the courage to walk boldly into the life you deserve. Good luck on your journey back to your true self. You've got this.